3,600,000 years ago, the ocean changed forever. For nearly 20 million years, one predator had ruled the world's warm seas, not as a legend, as a geological fact. Then its teeth stopped appearing in the rock. The animal was gone. It was called Megalodon, more than 15 meters long, which is about 50 feet long, with teeth the size of a human hand and jaws wide enough to swallow a grown person standing upright. To survive, it needed to consume around 1,100 kilograms of food every day, which is about 2,500 pounds. And for millions of years, it did exactly that. Then, geologically speaking, it vanished almost overnight. The ocean did not stop. It never does. Something had to fill the empty waters Megalodon left behind. But the throne did not pass from one giant predator to another. It broke apart. What followed was stranger than a single successor. It was the beginning of an entirely different kind of ocean. Why did the largest predatory shark in Earth's history disappear after surviving for nearly 20 million years? What kind of predator could succeed without becoming even larger? And what does that answer reveal about how evolution chooses its champions? If this kind of content is something you enjoy, consider giving the video a like and subscribing. It really helps support the channel and allows us to keep bringing you more stories like this. Now, let's go back to the moment the ocean lost its greatest predator. The shape of the world mattered just as much as the creature that ruled it. Every kingdom is built upon conditions that allow it to exist, and the reign of Megalodon rested upon an ocean that seemed endless, generous, and remarkably stable across spans of time that stretched far beyond human imagination. Long before its disappearance became written into stone, the foundations beneath its dominance had already been laid by a planet unlike the one we know today. Its scientific name, Otodus megalodon, carries a remarkably direct meaning: giant tooth, an appropriate identity for an animal remembered through countless fossilized teeth scattered across ancient coastlines. Yet the name reveals only a fragment of its story. Despite popular culture often presenting it as an oversized great white shark, Megalodon belonged to a completely different family, known as Odontidae. Its evolutionary roots reach toward extinct relatives, such as Cretoxyrhina, rather than any shark still swimming through modern seas. Similar teeth created an illusion of close kinship, but the resemblance emerged through similar feeding strategies rather than shared ancestry. Its empire occupied a remarkably specific part of the planet. Warm, shallow coastal seas stretched along broad continental shelves, forming vast epicontinental waters rich with life. These were not the freezing depths beyond sunlight, nor the immense pelagic expanses that reached across the middle of the oceans. Megalodon remained closely tied to coastal environments where sunlight nourished dense food webs and marine mammals gathered in extraordinary abundance. Most of its hunting grounds likely extended through waters only around 100 meters, approximately 328 feet, deep, where prey remained concentrated and accessible. Food existed there in astonishing quantity. The Miocene ocean supported thriving populations of smaller baleen whales, particularly members of the Cetatherium group. They bore little resemblance to the immense blue whales that would eventually inherit the seas. Instead, they represented manageable prey for a predator whose immense body demanded extraordinary amounts of nourishment. Hunting was not an occasional event, but a constant biological necessity, repeated across every season for countless generations. Each successful pursuit sustained an animal whose scale depended entirely upon reliable access to large marine mammals. The surrounding world reinforced that abundance. Global climates during much of the Miocene remained warmer than those of the present by roughly 2 to 3 degrees Celsius, about 4 to 6 degrees Fahrenheit. Polar ice occupied a smaller portion of the planet, allowing sea levels to stand much higher than today. Water covered regions that are now broad coastal plains, creating extensive marine habitats along nearly every continent. These flooded margins became nurseries for marine life, migration routes for whales, and productive hunting territories where Megalodon could patrol enormous stretches of coastline without leaving favorable conditions behind. Such stability encouraged specialization. Across nearly 20 million years, natural selection refined an animal exquisitely suited to this particular world. Every aspect of its enormous size, feeding strategy, growth, and reproduction aligned with warm coastlines, supporting dependable whale populations. Success endured because the environment changed gradually enough for those adaptations to remain effective through age after age. Yet this remarkable precision carried an overlooked vulnerability. A creature shaped so completely by one version of Earth possessed little flexibility when that version began to fade. If warm coastal habitats contracted, if shallow seas retreated, or if whale populations shifted beyond familiar waters, every advantage that had once strengthened Megalodon would become increasingly expensive to maintain. Its magnificent design depended upon conditions that were never guaranteed forever. Beneath the appearance of permanence, the planet itself had already begun arranging a different ocean, one whose contours favored lives written according to entirely different rules. The transformation began so gradually that no living creature could have recognized it within a single lifetime. Across the opening of the Pliocene, beginning about 5,300,000 years ago, the planet entered a prolonged period of cooling. Ice sheets expanded across higher latitudes, storing increasing amounts of water on land. As that water became locked within growing glaciers, global sea levels declined, exposing coastlines that had rested beneath the waves for millions of years. The broad marine shelves that had once formed an almost continuous ribbon around the continents slowly narrowed, changing the geography of the oceans without a single dramatic moment. Far to the west, another geological process was reshaping the circulation of the entire planet. The land bridge connecting North America and South America continued rising until the Central American Seaway was largely closed around 3 million years ago. Waters that had once flowed freely between the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean were redirected into new pathways. Ocean currents shifted, heat moved differently across the globe, and regional climates adjusted to an altered balance that would define the oceans of the modern world. The consequences reached far beyond changing temperatures. Fossil discoveries from successive layers of sediment reveal that Megalodon gradually disappeared from portions of its former range. Teeth that had once appeared across extensive tropical coastlines became increasingly restricted to fewer regions. The pattern does not suggest a sudden collapse, but a progressive retreat. Habitats that had supported generations of enormous predators were becoming fragmented into isolated pockets, each separated by expanding stretches of water that no longer provided the conditions on which the species depended. Among the most delicate losses were places that never appeared dramatic on the surface. Like many living sharks, Megalodon relied upon sheltered coastal nurseries, where newborn and juvenile animals could spend their earliest years with reduced exposure to larger predators. These shallow environments offered abundant prey and relatively stable conditions during the vulnerable stages of growth. Without such refuges, the earliest chapters of a megalodon's life became far more uncertain. One remarkable window into that forgotten chapter survives within the Gatun Formation of Panama, Rocks dating to around 10 million years ago preserve an ancient marine passage linking the Pacific Ocean and the Caribbean Sea. Paleontologists uncovered remarkable concentrations of small megalodon teeth scattered alongside fossil remains of young whales. Their size revealed that these teeth belonged not to mature giants, but to juveniles, providing compelling evidence that this coastal waterway once served as a nursery where young sharks fed, developed, and gradually prepared for life beyond protected shallows. As glaciation continued, coastlines retreated farther seaward. Areas that had once remained submerged became exposed landscapes, while productive nursery habitats steadily diminished over hundreds of thousands of years. Nothing catastrophic announced their disappearance. They simply became smaller, fewer, and increasingly disconnected until suitable places for raising the next generation were no longer widespread across the warm coastal margins. Population biology follows an unforgiving rhythm. A species may still possess healthy adults, successful hunters, and experienced breeders, yet decline becomes inevitable when too few offspring survive to replace them. Each mature individual eventually reaches the end of its lifespan, and without enough juveniles entering adulthood, the total population continues shrinking even while powerful animals still patrol familiar waters. The final generations of Megalodon may have lived within an ocean that still supported their immense bodies, while no longer supporting their future. By then, the changing climate and the loss of nursery grounds had already begun unraveling the conditions that once sustained the giant tooth. The kingdom remained recognizable, yet its foundations had weakened beneath every season, leaving an ancient ruler increasingly dependent upon a world that no longer resembled the one in which its extraordinary success had first taken shape. Another presence had been sharing those coastal waters for longer than the changing climate alone might suggest. At first, it occupied only a modest place within the broader marine community, overshadowed by a predator many times its size. Yet, as ancient shorelines shifted and familiar hunting grounds narrowed, this smaller hunter encountered opportunities that had scarcely existed before. The transformation did not arrive through overwhelming strength. It unfolded through timing, adaptation, and an environment that increasingly rewarded different advantages. Its scientific name is Carcharodon carcharias, the great white shark. Although popular imagination often casts it as the direct descendant of Megalodon, the resemblance is largely written in the shape of their teeth rather than in close family history. The two animals emerged from separate evolutionary lineages. Megalodon belonged to the extinct family Odontidae, while the great white developed along a branch much more closely associated with living mackerel sharks. Similar solutions to cutting through flesh evolved independently, producing teeth that appear remarkably alike despite very different ancestry. The fossil record places these two predators within the same oceans during a remarkable span of geological time. Research, led by paleontologist Robert Bosnecker and published during 2019, re-examined the youngest reliably dated megalodon fossils, concluding that the giant shark disappeared around 3,600,000 years ago. That revised timeline closely matches the expanding distribution of modern great white sharks throughout the early Pliocene, placing both species within an interval where their lives almost certainly intersected across many coastal ecosystems. Around 5,300,000 years ago, the great white began broadening its ecological role. Populations spread into warm continental shelf habitats already occupied by Megalodon, moving higher within marine food webs as environmental conditions evolved. During this period, the enormous ruler of the Miocene and the rising coastal hunter existed side by side for roughly 400,000 years. At first, their preferred prey and hunting patterns likely reduced direct conflict, but shrinking habitats steadily compressed those distinctions until overlap became increasingly difficult to avoid. Evidence preserved within fossil teeth has revealed an especially elegant glimpse into that relationship. During 2022, researchers publishing in the journal Nature Communications examined zinc isotope signatures locked inside fossil shark enamel. Zinc behaves predictably within food chains. Animals feeding lower in the trophic hierarchy accumulate relatively heavier zinc isotope ratios, while apex predators display lighter ratios, reflecting their position near the top. Because tooth enamel preserves these chemical patterns for millions of years, it becomes a remarkably durable archive of ancient diets. When scientists compared Megalodon teeth with those of early Pliocene great white sharks recovered from similar deposits, the isotope signatures proved strikingly alike. Both predators occupied nearly identical trophic positions, indicating that they relied upon many of the same marine mammals within the same coastal environments. The ancient ocean had gradually placed two formidable hunters into increasingly similar ecological roles while simultaneously reducing the resources available to support either one. Competition in nature rarely resembles dramatic confrontation. More often, it unfolds through countless ordinary hunts repeated across generations. Every successful meal secured by one predator becomes unavailable to another. Every season of declining prey favors the hunter, requiring fewer resources to maintain its body. The contest is measured not by isolated encounters, but by survival over immense stretches of evolutionary time. Within the cooling Pliocene seas, the balance slowly shifted toward the newcomer. The coastline itself had begun rewarding flexibility instead of enormous scale, allowing the great white to prosper within conditions that steadily eroded the foundation of Megalodon's long reign. By the time the giant predator disappeared from the fossil record, another shark had already become firmly established across many of the waters that once sustained the ancient giant, not through inheritance, but through persistence within a changing world. Survival is often imagined as a contest of strength, yet the history preserved beneath ancient coastlines tells a gentler and more revealing story. As the Pliocene Ocean continued changing around its inhabitants, the decisive advantage no longer belonged to the largest hunter. It belonged to the predator, whose body demanded less while accomplishing nearly the same task. Across immense spans of evolutionary time, energy became as important as power, and every successful hunt carried a calculation written into flesh rather than thought. The immense body of Megalodon had once represented unmatched success because the surrounding seas supplied extraordinary abundance. That balance gradually shifted as prey became less concentrated and productive coastal habitats diminished. Estimates suggest that an adult Megalodon required roughly 1,130 kilograms, about 2,500 pounds, of food each day to sustain its enormous metabolism. Every sunrise required another successful hunt, followed by another, across a coastline that no longer resembled the one in which the species had flourished for millions of years. The great white occupied a very different place within that equation. Although still an apex predator, its substantially smaller body required only a fraction of the calories consumed by its giant competitor. A successful kill could sustain it for extended periods, reducing the pressure to hunt constantly. As marine mammal populations shifted and resources became less predictable, this lower energetic cost transformed into one of the greatest biological advantages available within the changing ocean. Another adaptation strengthened that advantage in ways hidden beneath the skin. Most sharks depend almost entirely upon the surrounding water to determine their body temperature. The great white belongs to a much smaller group possessing regional endothermy, an ability to retain heat generated by working muscles through an intricate network of blood vessels known as the rete mirabile. Warm blood traveling away from the body transfers heat into cooler blood returning from the gills, conserving internal warmth rather than allowing it to disperse into the sea. This remarkable circulation allowed the great white to remain active in cooler conditions that would slow many other sharks. Muscles continued generating power, reaction times remained rapid, and hunting efficiency stayed remarkably high even as ocean temperatures declined. Waters that gradually became less favorable for a giant predator increasingly rewarded an animal capable of maintaining elevated performance despite the surrounding cold. Its teeth reveal another lesson in evolutionary economy. Megalodon's enormous teeth functioned like broad cutting blades, delivering tremendous force into large prey. The great white followed a different path. Fine serrations lined each tooth, creating edges that sliced through blubber and muscle with remarkable efficiency. The comparison resembles the difference between pressing with a smooth blade and drawing a finely serrated knife across resistant material. Less effort produced deeper cuts, allowing valuable energy to remain available for future hunts rather than being spent during every attack. The fossil record preserves this gradual transition across both time and geography. Along portions of the Atlantic coastline, deposits containing declining numbers of megalodon teeth begin yielding increasing evidence of great white presence. These discoveries do not portray an abrupt replacement. Instead, they document expanding populations occupying habitats that steadily became more suitable for one predator while becoming progressively less favorable for the other. Natural selection does not measure victory by size alone. It favors whichever design matches the conditions of the present world. During the closing chapters of Megalodon's history, flexibility, lower metabolic demands, efficient anatomy, and thermal resilience combined into a strategy remarkably well suited to the cooling seas of the Pliocene. The great white did not overcome the ancient giant through direct conflict. It endured the environmental transformation with fewer biological costs, gradually inheriting coastal waters that no longer supported the magnificent scale upon which Megalodon had built its long and extraordinary reign. The coastline belonged to a different kind of hunter now. It did not inherit its place by growing larger than the ancient giant that had vanished. Instead, it occupied the same broad stage with a body refined for efficiency, speed, and precision. Every feature reflected an ocean that increasingly rewarded adaptability over sheer scale, allowing the great white shark to become the defining predator of continental shelves across much of the modern world. An adult great white can reach approximately 6.5 meters, about 21 feet in length, and weigh around 2,300 kilograms, about 5,000 pounds. Compared with the estimated mass of Megalodon, it represents only a small fraction of the earlier predator's immense bulk. That apparent disadvantage concealed an important strength. Less body mass required less energy, while a streamlined shape allowed rapid bursts of acceleration capable of overwhelming prey before escape became possible. Its appearance also reveals one of the ocean's most elegant forms of concealment. The upper surface carries shades of gray and blue that blend naturally with darker water when viewed from above. Beneath, the body fades into pale white, merging with sunlight filtering through the surface when seen from below. This pattern, known as countershading, allows the shark to disappear against two completely different backgrounds at the same time. Rather than relying upon reefs or vegetation for cover, it becomes almost indistinguishable from the surrounding sea itself. That camouflage supports one of the most dramatic hunting strategies in marine life. Great whites often patrol at depths between 18 meters, about 59 feet, and 30 meters, about 98 feet, beneath the surface while searching upward for silhouettes created by floating seals or sea lions. Once a target is selected, the shark accelerates with extraordinary force, reaching speeds exceeding 56 kilometers per hour, about 35 miles per hour, before striking from below. Momentum frequently carries the entire animal into the air, producing the spectacular breaches recorded along coastlines from South Africa to Australia. The attack is completed before the prey fully registers that danger was approaching. Its mouth functions as an endlessly renewing cutting system. Around 300 teeth occupy multiple rotating rows embedded within the jaws. Whenever a working tooth breaks or falls away, another gradually shifts into position, often within about 1 day. This continual replacement ensures that the shark almost always hunts with sharp, functional teeth regardless of age or previous encounters with struggling prey. Long before physical contact occurs, an extraordinary network of senses has already gathered detailed information about the surrounding water. The shark's sense of smell detects remarkably small concentrations of dissolved biological material, while specialized organs called the ampullae of Lorenzini perceive faint electrical fields generated by the muscle contractions of living animals. Even prey hidden beneath sand or remaining almost motionless continues producing electrical signals that reveal its presence. The ocean itself becomes filled with invisible patterns that the shark alone can interpret. When contact finally arrives, the bite delivers formidable force. Scientific estimates suggest pressures approaching 27,600 kilopascals, equivalent to roughly 4,000 pounds per square inch. Such power enables the great white to slice through dense blubber, fracture cartilage, and damage heavy bone during a single attack, making even large marine mammals vulnerable within moments. Across continental shelves surrounding South Africa, California, Australia, New Zealand, and many other temperate coastlines, these combined adaptations established a remarkably effective regulator of marine ecosystems. Wherever seals gathered on rocky islands, sea lions rested near shore, or migrating whales passed close to land, the great white occupied the highest predatory role within that coastal domain. Beyond those familiar shelves, however, the sea extended into immense pelagic distances where an entirely different form of dominance was already taking shape under the same changing sky. Far beyond the familiar margins of the continents, the ocean opens into a realm where coastlines disappear beneath the horizon and hunting follows different rules. Here, there are no rocky islands crowded with seals, no narrow shelves guiding migrations, and no predictable boundaries separating one territory from another. It was within this immense pelagic world that another lineage continued its gradual ascent, following a path already underway, while the age of Megalodon drew toward its close. The animal known today as the orca bears a name that often creates immediate misunderstanding. Despite its common title of killer whale, the orca is not a true whale in the taxonomic sense. It belongs instead to the family Delphinidae, the oceanic dolphins, making it the largest dolphin alive on Earth. From an evolutionary perspective, it shares a more recent common ancestor with an ordinary dolphin than with the immense blue whale that also inhabits the sea. Its fossil history reaches back into the same changing chapter that reshaped the oceans for every large predator. Among the earliest well-documented members of the lineage is Orcinus cetoniensis, discovered within Pliocene deposits in Tuscany, Italy. These fossils date between approximately 5,300,000 and 2,600,000 years ago, placing them within the same geological interval during which Megalodon disappeared from the fossil record. That ancient relative looked surprisingly modest beside its modern descendants. Estimates suggest a body length of about 4 meters, roughly 13 feet, carrying only 14 teeth adapted for grasping prey. Its proportions retained many characteristics associated with smaller dolphins rather than the powerful hunter familiar today. Nothing about its appearance suggested that this lineage would eventually produce one of the most formidable marine predators ever to inhabit the open ocean. Its transformation unfolded gradually across millions of years. During the Miocene and into the Pliocene, successive generations expanded both in size and ecological influence, while ancient coastal ecosystems were simultaneously undergoing profound change. The contraction of Megalodon's world and the diversification of early orcas formed parallel chapters within the same planetary story. One lineage became increasingly constrained by changing habitats, while another continued discovering opportunities across an evolving ocean. The modern orca reflects the outcome of that long evolutionary journey. Adult males may reach nearly 10 meters, about 32 feet, in length and exceed 10,000 kilograms, about 22,000 pounds, in mass. Although still considerably smaller than the greatest estimates for Megalodon, the orca surpasses every living great white shark in both size and weight. Its sleek body combines remarkable endurance with powerful acceleration, allowing it to travel immense distances across virtually every ocean basin on Earth. Its geographic range is equally extraordinary. Orcas inhabit polar seas rich with drifting ice, temperate waters surrounding distant archipelagos, and tropical oceans warmed by equatorial sunlight. Few apex predators have ever displayed such environmental flexibility. Rather than depending upon one narrow climate, they thrive across habitats spanning nearly the entire marine planet. Perhaps the most remarkable measure of their position within the food web appears not through anatomy, but through documented interactions with other predators. Orcas are the only marine hunters known to regularly pursue and kill great white sharks. Observations from South Africa, Australia, and the Pacific coast of North America reveal a consistent pattern. When resident or transient orca groups enter established great white feeding grounds, the sharks frequently abandon those areas, sometimes remaining absent for weeks or even months after the encounters. This reversal of expectation reshapes the hierarchy established along the coast. The predator that inherited Megalodon's former hunting grounds becomes unexpectedly cautious in the presence of another animal whose greatest advantage cannot be measured simply through length, weight, or bite force. Within the immense openness beyond the continental shelves, a different form of mastery had already begun defining what it meant to stand at the highest level of the ocean's living order. The greatest transformation within the open ocean could not be measured by teeth, muscle, or body length. It unfolded inside an organ hidden beneath layers of bone and living tissue, carrying possibilities that no previous apex predator had assembled on such a scale. Evolution had produced countless powerful hunters before the orca appeared, yet none had placed so much of its success within the architecture of the mind itself. Among all marine mammals, the orca possesses one of the highest brain-to-body ratios ever measured, second only to a few smaller dolphins. The brain alone may weigh nearly 7 kilograms, about 15 pounds, while the average human brain weighs around 1.5 kilograms, about 3 pounds. Size by itself, however, explains remarkably little. What distinguishes the orca is not simply the mass of its brain, but the organization hidden within it. Neuroanatomical studies reveal unusually expanded regions involved in social awareness, emotional processing, decision-making, and long-term spatial memory. These structures support abilities extending far beyond immediate instinctive reactions. In humans, comparable regions contribute to planning, maintaining relationships, remembering distant places, and adapting behavior according to previous experience. The orca displays many of these same capacities within a marine environment spanning entire ocean basins. One of the clearest demonstrations comes from the mirror self-recognition test, a demanding experiment designed to determine whether an animal recognizes its own reflection rather than mistaking it for another individual. Orcas have successfully passed this assessment, joining an exceptionally limited group that includes humans, great apes, elephants, and several dolphin species. The result suggests a level of self-awareness that remains extraordinarily uncommon throughout the animal kingdom. Daily life within an orca pod reveals the practical value of these cognitive abilities. Individuals recognize companions after years of separation, distinguish relatives across multiple generations, and maintain intricate family bonds lasting an entire lifetime. Memory extends beyond individual relationships into geography itself. Feeding grounds, migration routes, seasonal prey movements, and changing coastal conditions remain stored within the collective experience of the pod, allowing knowledge acquired decades earlier to guide present decisions. These abilities create a profound contrast with the ancient giant, whose disappearance reshaped the ocean. Megalodon interpreted its surroundings through highly refined senses, powerful instinct, electroreception, and the constant demands of sustaining an enormous body. The orca experiences that same marine world through memory, layered upon memory, combining observation with anticipation, cooperation, and purposeful coordination. The surrounding ocean becomes more than a hunting ground. It becomes a landscape remembered across generations. Such comparisons are firmly supported by modern neuroscience rather than imaginative storytelling. Decades of behavioral observation, combined with detailed anatomical studies of cetacean brains, consistently demonstrate capacities for sophisticated learning, flexible problem-solving, emotional complexity, and enduring social organization. These conclusions emerge from carefully accumulated scientific evidence instead of attempts to assign human qualities where none exist. Intelligence also transforms the pace of adaptation. Genetic evolution unfolds across many generations, gradually favoring inherited traits. Learned behavior spreads much faster. A successful strategy discovered by one experienced animal can be observed, practiced, and refined by younger relatives within the same family, allowing an entire population to adjust without waiting for biological change. Each generation begins not at the starting point of instinct alone, but upon the accumulated experience of those that came before. Within that expanding inheritance, the meaning of dominance itself quietly shifted. The most successful predator was no longer defined only by the force it could deliver or the size it could attain. Mastery increasingly emerged from communication, memory, shared experience, and the ability to solve new challenges as the ocean continued changing around every living creature. Through the patient work of evolution, intelligence itself had become one of the most powerful hunting adaptations ever to enter the sea. Watching an orca hunt is less like witnessing a solitary chase and more like observing a carefully organized undertaking unfolding across open water. Every individual contributes to a larger pattern that extends beyond instinct alone. Positions shift, movements complement one another, and timing becomes as important as strength. The outcome depends not upon one exceptional animal, but upon several acting together with remarkable precision. One of the clearest demonstrations appears in the waters surrounding Antarctica. There, family groups numbering between 4 and 7 individuals have been documented approaching floating ice where seals rest beyond the reach of most predators. Rather than rushing directly toward their prey, the orcas arrange themselves into formation and swim in synchronized alignment. Their combined momentum generates a carefully controlled wave that washes across the ice, sweeping the seal into the surrounding sea. Such wave washing succeeds only when every participant contributes the correct speed, spacing, and direction. A slight mistake from one animal reduces the effectiveness of the entire effort. Far to the north, another tradition unfolds among populations inhabiting the waters surrounding Norway and Iceland. Vast schools of herring move through these cold seas in shimmering clouds containing countless fish. Instead of attacking immediately, pods surround the school and gradually compress it into a dense sphere using coordinated swimming patterns and carefully released streams of bubbles. Once the fish have been concentrated into a compact mass, individual orcas strike with powerful tail blows that stun large numbers at once before feeding begins. This remarkable technique, known as carousel feeding, transforms scattered prey into an organized harvest through cooperation rather than speed alone. Even the largest animals in the ocean become vulnerable when confronted by coordinated endurance. Orca pods have been documented hunting baleen whales, including blue whales and humpback whales, reaching approximately 27 meters, about 90 feet, in length and masses approaching 180,000 kilograms, about 400,000 pounds. Rather than relying upon overwhelming force during a single encounter, pods separate vulnerable calves from protective adults, rotate responsibilities among family members, and maintain pressure across hours of pursuit. Each participant contributes only part of the effort, allowing the group to outlast prey many times larger than any individual hunter. The remarkable feature shared by all of these strategies lies not in their effectiveness, but in their origin. Young orcas are not born knowing how to perform them. Juveniles spend years accompanying experienced adults, observing repeated hunts before gradually participating themselves. Knowledge passes through demonstration, imitation, and continual practice. The process resembles apprenticeship far more closely than inherited instinct, with each generation building upon lessons preserved by those before it. As these traditions accumulated, different populations gradually developed remarkably different ways of living, despite belonging to the same species. Norwegian pods refined carousel feeding for schooling fish. Antarctic groups perfected wave washing against drifting ice. Transient populations along the Pacific coast specialized in ambushing marine mammals through entirely different methods. Each community shaped its behavior according to local conditions, creating distinct hunting cultures adapted to the resources surrounding them. Communication binds these societies together across immense distances. Every pod possesses its own recognizable dialect, a unique collection of calls passed through generations without losing its essential character. These vocal traditions identify family membership, maintain cohesion during travel, and coordinate complex hunts across broad expanses of open water. Calves learn these distinctive sounds from mothers and grandmothers, preserving patterns that may continue unchanged for decades. Within this remarkable inheritance, The orca became something the oceans had never assembled before. Hunting no longer depended solely upon powerful bodies or sharpened teeth. Success emerged from shared memory, learned traditions, coordinated roles, and voices carrying knowledge across generations, allowing each family to preserve an ever-growing legacy written not in bone or fossil, but in experience itself. Among biologists, the word culture carries a precise meaning. It describes behaviors learned from others and passed from one generation to the next, rather than inherited through genes alone. By that scientific definition, the orca possesses culture in one of its clearest forms. Across the world's oceans, families preserve traditions that survive long after the individuals who first developed them have disappeared, creating living lineages of knowledge that continue flowing through time. At the heart of every pod stands a remarkably stable family structure. Orca societies are matrilineal, organized around experienced females whose descendants remain beside them throughout their lives. Sons do not leave upon reaching adulthood, and daughters remain within the same family while raising calves of their own. Generation gathers beside generation until a single pod may contain grandmothers, mothers, offspring, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren traveling together across the same waters. Few large predators maintain social bonds with such permanence. This structure gives experience unusual value. Older females continue guiding their families long after their reproductive years have ended, contributing something more enduring than additional offspring. Their greatest gift becomes memory. During periods when familiar food sources become scarce, these elder leaders direct pods toward productive hunting grounds remembered from seasons long past. They carry within their lives a map assembled across decades of changing oceans. Researchers studying resident orca populations of the Pacific Northwest discovered striking evidence supporting this role. Pods led by post-reproductive grandmothers experienced noticeably higher survival during years when Chinook salmon became difficult to find. Younger animals had never encountered comparable shortages, but older females remembered where prey had gathered under similar conditions many years earlier. Their accumulated experience improved the chances of the entire family, demonstrating that memory itself could become an evolutionary advantage. Knowledge, therefore, extends beyond the lifetime of any single animal. A successful hunting strategy, discovered decades earlier, remains available to descendants who never witnessed its original development. Each generation observes, practices, and gradually improves inherited techniques before passing them onward once again. Culture becomes a living archive, preserving solutions without waiting for genetic evolution to reshape the species. Over immense stretches of time, these inherited traditions have carried different populations along remarkably different paths. Resident orcas and transient orcas sometimes inhabit overlapping coastal regions while maintaining completely separate diets, vocal traditions, social behavior, and hunting methods. Resident groups feed primarily upon fish, especially salmon, while transient groups specialize in marine mammals. Despite sharing nearby waters, they rarely interbreed. Some researchers have even proposed that these deeply rooted cultural distinctions may eventually justify recognizing separate subspecies, not because geography divided them, but because learned ways of life gradually created lasting separation. The geographic reach of the species reflects the success of this remarkable flexibility. Orcas inhabit nearly every ocean on Earth, traveling from the drifting ice of the Arctic to warm equatorial seas. No other apex predator has established such extensive dominance across environments differing so greatly in climate, prey, and seasonal conditions. Wherever they travel, family traditions adjust to local circumstances while preserving the enduring identity of each pod. This expansive inheritance also transformed the ecological role once occupied by Megalodon. The giant shark had relied upon overwhelming individual strength to capture large baleen whales whenever opportunity allowed. Orcas approached the same prey through cooperation refined across generations. A family acting together accomplished what no single member could achieve alone, replacing solitary force with accumulated knowledge shared across many lifetimes. Through these enduring societies, the ocean witnessed a form of dominance unlike any before it. Strength remained important, speed remained valuable, yet lasting success increasingly rested upon relationships preserved across generations, where memory traveled beside every pod and each newborn entered a family, already carrying centuries of experience within its living traditions. Far beneath the familiar realm of rolling waves lies another ocean, separated not by shoreline, but by pressure. As depth increases, sunlight fades into a dim blue veil before disappearing altogether, leaving behind a landscape shaped without dawn or twilight. Beyond approximately 900 meters, roughly 3,000 feet, the conditions become so severe that few of the ocean's surface rulers ever remain for long. Pressure climbs beyond 190 atmospheres, about 2,800 pounds per square inch, pressing against every surface. Temperatures linger only a few degrees above freezing, and darkness becomes the permanent state of the water itself. Neither the great white shark nor the orca established lasting command over this immense region. Both occasionally descend for brief intervals, yet neither built its existence around the abyss. Their strengths evolved within brighter waters where vision, speed, and familiar prey shaped the rhythm of survival. The immense territory beneath them remained governed by different physical laws, demanding different biological solutions from anything that wished to live there. Into this neglected kingdom descended another giant. The sperm whale, known scientifically as Physeter macrocephalus, became the largest toothed predator ever to inhabit Earth. It inherited a realm neither of the ocean's other dominant hunters could consistently exploit. Rather than competing along continental shelves or within productive coastal seas, it followed prey into darkness, where colossal squid, deep-dwelling fish, and other elusive animals drifted through an environment unlike any found near the surface. An adult male sperm whale may grow to approximately 20.5 meters, about 67 feet, in length, while exceeding 57,000 kilograms, about 125,000 pounds, in mass. These dimensions surpass those of every living orca and dwarf the largest great white shark. Even so, this immense mammal remained considerably shorter than the greatest estimates proposed for the largest megalodon individuals. Size alone, however, reveals very little about the role it came to occupy. Its appearance seems almost disconnected from expectations formed by other marine predators. Instead of a streamlined, pointed head, the sperm whale carries an enormous rectangular structure projecting forward like the bow of a vessel designed for another world. This remarkable head may account for nearly 1/3 of the animal's total body length, creating proportions unmatched among living whales. At first glance, it appears strangely impractical, almost too large for the body supporting it, yet every contour reflects adaptation to extraordinary demands imposed by the abyss. Conventional predators concentrate their most obvious weapons within jaws, fins, or muscular bodies. The sperm whale invested an astonishing proportion of its anatomy into the region above its mouth. Evolution repeatedly favored enlargement of this structure across millions of years, suggesting that survival at extreme depths rewarded a very different strategy than the one followed by hunters of warmer surface waters. The deeper this whale traveled, the more valuable that unusual anatomy became. Hunting often required descents extending well beyond 1,000 meters, approximately 3,300 feet, where crushing pressure and perpetual darkness eliminated many familiar senses. Prey no longer revealed itself through reflected sunlight. Instead, success depended upon biological innovations capable of functioning where vision contributed very little. The enormous head therefore became far more than an unusual silhouette against the sea. It transformed into the defining feature that allowed the sperm whale to occupy an ecological domain beyond the practical reach of nearly every other apex predator alive. While sharks mastered coastlines and orcas reshaped life across open waters through intelligence and cooperation, the sperm whale established authority in a vertical frontier descending toward the ocean floor itself. Within that immense structure rested an adaptation unlike anything possessed by its predecessors or contemporaries. It was neither claw nor tooth nor muscle, but an intricate biological instrument whose design transformed darkness into navigable space, allowing the abyss to become not an obstacle, but a homeland. Long before the surface brightens with dawn, the sperm whale is already descending into a realm where sunlight has no influence. Its enormous forehead, so unusual among living animals, is not an accident of evolution or an oversized burden carried through time. It is the centerpiece of an extraordinary biological system that allows one of Earth's largest predators to move through crushing depths with remarkable efficiency. Hidden within that massive structure is the spermaceti organ, an adaptation unlike anything found in another living creature. The spermaceti organ occupies much of the whale's enlarged forehead and contains an immense reservoir of waxy oil. For centuries, its purpose remained mysterious, inspiring speculation that ranged from buoyancy control to sound production. Modern research indicates that this remarkable structure contributes to several functions, among them assisting movement through the water column. As the whale descends, reduced blood flow allows the oil within the organ to cool, increasing its density. The resulting change subtly shifts buoyancy, creating an internal ballast system that helps the animal continue downward while reducing the muscular effort required to maintain its descent. Rather than struggling against gravity and water resistance throughout every moment of a dive, the sperm whale allows its own anatomy to share part of the work. Evolution produced an elegant solution that conserves valuable energy before the hunt has even begun. Every calorie preserved during descent can later be devoted to pursuing prey through one of the least forgiving environments on the planet. That environment extends far beyond the reach of ordinary marine hunters. Documented dives have exceeded approximately 1,980 meters, about 6,500 feet, beneath the surface, with individual descents lasting as long as 90 minutes before the whale returns to breathe. Few mammals can tolerate even a fraction of these conditions. The sperm whale repeats them throughout its lifetime, descending again and again into waters that remain unfamiliar to nearly every other large predator. At approximately 1,980 meters, about 6,500 feet, depth pressure reaches nearly 195 atmospheres, about 2,866 pounds per square inch, against every exposed surface of the body. Human engineering answers such forces with reinforced pressure hulls, carefully calculated materials, and rigid structural design. The sperm whale requires none of these artificial protections because its own body developed under the demands of that immense weight across millions of years of evolution. Its rib cage provides one of the most remarkable examples of this adaptation. Instead of resisting compression until failure, the ribs possess flexibility that allows the chest to collapse safely under increasing pressure. This controlled compression protects delicate tissues from damage, while preventing the injuries that would accompany a rigid skeleton at comparable depths. The lungs participate in the same strategy. As pressure rises, they compress to a small fraction of their surface volume without permanent harm, greatly reducing the amount of dissolved gases entering the bloodstream. This adaptation lowers the risk of decompression injuries that challenge human divers returning from extreme depths. Oxygen, meanwhile, is stored where it will remain most useful. Sperm whale muscles contain extraordinary concentrations of myoglobin, the oxygen-binding protein that supplies working tissue during prolonged dives. The abundance of this protein gives the muscles an exceptionally dark appearance while allowing the whale to continue swimming long after surface oxygen would have been exhausted by most mammals of comparable size. Even more astonishing is the organ coordinating every movement through this immense darkness. The sperm whale possesses the largest brain ever known in any animal, reaching approximately 9.5 kilograms, about 21 pounds, in mass. Size alone does not determine intelligence, yet such neurological capacity supports the demanding integration of navigation, echolocation, memory, movement, and social communication while operating in conditions where vision contributes almost nothing. Within the abyss, every major feature of the sperm whale's body works toward a single purpose. The head regulates descent, the skeleton yields without breaking, the lungs compress without injury, the muscles carry their own oxygen, and the immense brain orchestrates life, where darkness and pressure define every moment. It is not merely surviving beneath the surface. It is living in a world that shaped every part of its remarkable design. Darkness changes the meaning of perception. At the depths where the sperm whale hunts, vision has surrendered completely, leaving no horizon, no outline, and no trace of sunlight to guide movement. Descending to approximately 1,980 meters, about 6,500 feet, places the whale within an environment where eyes contribute almost nothing. Yet this immense predator moves with certainty through the abyss because it relies upon an entirely different sense. It hunts with sound, transforming the surrounding water into a living map that reveals everything hidden beyond sight. The sperm whale produces the most powerful biological sound ever measured. Echolocation clicks have reached approximately 230 decibels underwater, exceeding the acoustic output of every other known animal. Such intensity is difficult to imagine because underwater sound behaves differently than it does in air, traveling farther and carrying vastly more energy through the dense medium of the sea. The whale's voice is not merely louder than familiar sounds. It occupies an entirely different scale of acoustic power. For perspective, a jet engine during takeoff generates approximately 140 decibels in air. The sperm whale's echolocation clicks surpass that level by an enormous margin, although direct numerical comparisons between air and underwater measurements require caution because the reference standards differ. Even allowing for those differences, the whale remains unmatched among living creatures in the intensity of the signals it projects into the surrounding ocean. These remarkable clicks originate within specialized structures known as the phonic lips, located inside the nasal passages rather than the throat. Air is forced repeatedly through these tissues, generating sharp acoustic pulses without expelling breath into the surrounding water. The resulting sound is then directed into the immense spermaceti organ, whose complex internal architecture helps shape, focus, and project the signal into a concentrated forward beam. Instead of illuminating darkness with light, the whale illuminates it with precisely organized sound. Every click races outward through the abyss until it encounters an object. Reflections then return from squid, fish, underwater slopes, or drifting obstacles, carrying subtle differences in timing and intensity. The whale's nervous system interprets these returning echoes with astonishing precision, constructing a detailed representation of nearby space. Size, distance, movement, texture, and even aspects of shape become available through sound alone, allowing navigation and hunting where vision has long ceased to function. Researchers have proposed that exceptionally powerful pulses delivered at very close range may also influence prey directly. Laboratory evidence and acoustic modeling suggest that intense sound fields could disorient or temporarily incapacitate squid positioned only a few body lengths from an actively echolocating sperm whale. This possibility remains an area of scientific investigation rather than established fact. Yet, it reflects the extraordinary pressures generated within the whale's focused acoustic beam. As pursuit narrows into its final moments, the pattern of clicks changes dramatically. Widely spaced pulses accelerate into an intense, rapid sequence known as a creak, sometimes described as a buzz. During this terminal stage, the whale updates its acoustic picture many times each second, tracking every movement of prey as distance closes through complete darkness. The hunt unfolds without a single ray of sunlight, guided entirely by echoes returning through cold water. People fortunate enough to encounter echolocating sperm whales at close range have described an unusual sensation. Before consciously recognizing the sound itself, they often report feeling rhythmic pulses passing through the chest, skull, and surrounding water. The experience suggests that these immense acoustic waves are perceived not only through hearing, but also through the body, reflecting the immense energy carried within each click. Armed with this extraordinary biological instrument, the sperm whale transformed the abyss into familiar territory. Where other great predators surrendered to darkness, it found direction. Where sight ended, sound became certainty, allowing an immense hunter to command a kingdom hidden beneath the reach of sunlight itself. Far beneath the rolling surface, where descending water gradually erases every trace of daylight, the sperm whale enters a realm shaped by immense pressure and perpetual darkness. Here, at approximately 1,980 meters, about 6,500 feet beneath the waves, its most important prey drifts through the abyss. The giant squid, known scientifically as Architeuthis dux, is among the largest invertebrates ever to evolve, reaching lengths of approximately 13 meters, about 43 feet, including its extended feeding tentacles. Within this concealed world, predator and prey have shared an ancient relationship that remains almost entirely hidden from human observation. The giant squid is no passive inhabitant of the deep. Its enormous eyes, measuring approximately 27 centimeters, about 11 inches, across, are the largest known among living animals. Rather than gathering sunlight, they are adapted to detect the faintest disturbances produced by glowing organisms or the immense shadow of an approaching hunter. In the darkness of the abyss, even a distant movement may create a fleeting shimmer of bioluminescence, offering the squid precious moments to react before danger arrives. No human being has ever witnessed a complete natural hunt between an adult sperm whale and an adult giant squid in the deep ocean. Instead, Nearly everything understood about their encounters has emerged through careful scientific reconstruction. Evidence comes from stranded whales, recovered squid remains, stomach contents, and the unmistakable scars preserved across the skin of mature males returning from repeated descents into the depths. Almost every fully grown sperm whale carries circular marks surrounding the head and muzzle. These scars match the dimensions of giant squid suckers, each lined with sharp, chitinous rings capable of gripping flesh with remarkable force. During an encounter, powerful tentacles wrap around the whale's face, attempting to hold, resist, or redirect the advancing predator. Every scar represents a struggle conducted beyond the reach of sunlight, where neither participant can depend upon vision, and every movement unfolds within crushing pressure. Some recovered sperm whale skulls preserve additional evidence. Researchers have identified injuries consistent with strikes from the hard beak of a giant squid, a remarkably effective feeding structure hidden at the center of its arms. Although tiny compared with the whale itself, this beak is capable of slicing tough tissue, demonstrating that the squid remains an active and determined opponent until the final moments of the encounter. An adult sperm whale consumes extraordinary quantities of food. Daily intake may approach approximately 900 kilograms, about 2,000 pounds, of squid and deep-dwelling fish. Every meal originates within ecosystems that remain inaccessible to the great white shark and the orca, drawing nourishment from food webs sustained far below the familiar surface waters. The whale, therefore, depends upon a kingdom almost entirely separate from those occupied by the other great marine predators. The lineage of sperm whales once followed a different path. Fossils dating to approximately 10 million years ago, recovered from Peru, reveal formidable relatives, including Acrophyseter and Livyatan melville. These ancient species possessed massive teeth in both jaws and hunted large marine mammals rather than specializing upon squid. Their role resembled that of powerful surface hunters before changing oceans gradually favored the deep diving strategy perfected by the modern sperm whale. Today, that specialization grants possession of an immense three-dimensional domain. The mesopelagic and bathopelagic zones extend from approximately 200 meters, about 660 feet, to approximately 4,000 meters, about 13,123 feet, beneath the sea. By volume, this hidden region exceeds the combined expanse of the sunlit surface waters. Within it, no other large predator competes with the same mastery, allowing the sperm whale to reign across an empire measured not by coastlines, but by depth itself. Across the productive waters that border the continents, two celebrated predators occasionally enter the same hunting grounds. One is built around solitary precision, relying on explosive acceleration and an arsenal refined through hundreds of millions of years of shark evolution. The other arrives as a family, carrying shared experience gathered across generations. Whenever these paths overlap, marine researchers gain a rare opportunity to observe how intelligence and cooperation can reshape the balance of power in the sea. For many years, the great white shark was widely regarded as the undisputed ruler of coastal ecosystems. Its streamlined body, remarkable sensory abilities, and devastating bite made it one of the most effective hunters on Earth. Yet observations collected from several oceans have revealed that another hunter is capable of displacing it with surprising consistency. The evidence comes not from legend, but from satellite tracking, recovered carcasses, drone footage, and careful field studies conducted over many years. Orcas do not simply encounter great white sharks by chance. In documented cases, they appear to seek them deliberately. Small groups work together with remarkable coordination, approaching from different directions rather than charging directly toward their target. Each individual adjusts its movements to those of its companions, creating a level of cooperation that transforms several predators into a single organized hunting unit. One remarkable tactic exploits a vulnerability unique to sharks. When a great white is turned upside down, it can enter a temporary condition known as tonic immobility. During this state, normal swimming movements cease, and the animal becomes largely unable to resist. Researchers believe experienced orcas intentionally trigger this response by rolling the shark onto its back. The technique depends upon timing, strength, and practiced coordination, demonstrating knowledge that extends beyond simple instinctive attack. Once the shark is immobilized, the encounter often ends with extraordinary precision. Instead of consuming the entire animal, the orcas commonly remove only the liver. This enormous organ serves several vital functions within a shark's body. Rich in oils, including the naturally occurring compound squalene, it provides buoyancy and stores an immense reserve of concentrated energy. In a mature great white, the liver may weigh approximately 136 kilograms, about 300 pounds, to approximately 227 kilograms, about 500 pounds. Harvesting this single organ delivers exceptional nutritional value while avoiding unnecessary effort. Recovered shark carcasses frequently display the same unmistakable pattern. The opening is carefully positioned behind the pectoral fin, allowing access to the liver while leaving much of the remaining body largely untouched. Such repeated precision suggests learned behavior refined through repeated success rather than accidental feeding. The consequences extend well beyond individual hunts. Satellite tracking has shown that great white sharks sometimes abandon established feeding grounds after orcas appear in the region. In parts of South Africa and along the Pacific coast of North America, sharks have departed areas they had occupied consistently, remaining absent for weeks or even months following confirmed encounters with hunting orcas. These movements ripple through coastal ecosystems, altering the distribution of predators and prey alike. What emerges from these observations is not a story about brute force alone. Great white sharks remain among the most formidable hunters ever to evolve, perfectly adapted for ambush within coastal waters. Orcas, however, add another dimension to predation. They combine physical strength with communication, memory, cooperation, and the transmission of successful techniques from older individuals to younger generations. Each hunt reflects accumulated experience preserved within the pod rather than within a single lifetime. Seen together, these encounters reveal that dominance in nature is rarely determined by size or weaponry in isolation. Evolution has produced many paths to becoming an apex predator. In the coastal ocean, the great white represents the perfection of solitary hunting, while the orca demonstrates the extraordinary power of collective intelligence. Their interactions remind us that survival is often decided not only by strength, but also by the ability to learn, adapt, and act together across generations. The disappearance of a dominant predator rarely affects only a single branch of life. Its influence spreads outward through every layer of an ecosystem, altering relationships that had remained stable across immense spans of time. When Megalodon vanished from the oceans during the late Pliocene, the event did not leave behind an empty throne waiting for another giant to occupy it. Instead, it removed a force that had shaped marine evolution for approximately 20 million years, allowing entirely different pathways to emerge. Among the animals most profoundly affected were the baleen whales. Throughout much of the Miocene, these enormous filter feeders shared the seas with the largest predatory fish ever known. Fossil evidence suggests that juvenile whales, smaller adults, and coastal populations lived under continual pressure from an apex hunter capable of attacking prey of extraordinary size. Survival favored migration patterns, body plans, and behaviors that reduced the risk of becoming a meal. Evolution, therefore, unfolded beneath the constant influence of a predator unlike any that had come before. Once that pressure disappeared, the evolutionary landscape changed with surprising speed in geological terms. Over the following millions of years, baleen whales increased substantially in average body size. Paleontologists studying fossil skeletons from successive deposits have documented this trend across several whale lineages, indicating that gigantism accelerated after Megalodon no longer occupied its ecological role. Freed from a predator capable of regularly challenging very large whales, natural selection increasingly rewarded immense size as protection against the predators that remained. The blue whale, Balænoptera musculus, represents the most remarkable expression of that transformation. Reaching approximately 30 meters, about 98 feet, in length and weighing as much as approximately 180 metric tons, about 198 short tons, it exceeds every dinosaur, every ancient marine reptile, and every known animal that has ever lived. Such extraordinary dimensions demand staggering quantities of food, yet they also provide exceptional security against attack. Many marine biologists consider it unlikely that an animal of this scale could have evolved while an adult megalodon still patrolled productive coastal waters with regularity. The extinction that claimed Megalodon extended far beyond a single species. Geological evidence indicates that approximately 36% of marine megafauna disappeared during this interval. Marine mammal diversity declined by approximately 55%, sea turtle diversity by approximately 43%, and large seabird diversity by approximately 35%. Countless ecological relationships vanished alongside them, leaving an ocean fundamentally reorganized rather than merely diminished. This restructuring reached deeper than species counts alone. Research examining functional ecology concluded that approximately 17% of unique ecological roles disappeared during the extinction event and failed to reappear throughout the succeeding Pleistocene. A functional role represents more than an individual species. It reflects a distinctive combination of body size, feeding strategy, habitat, and behavior that contributes something irreplaceable to the larger ecosystem. When those combinations vanished, the architecture of the marine food web changed permanently. The predators that eventually flourished inherited this transformed environment rather than the one Megalodon had once dominated. Great white sharks refined their mastery of productive continental shelves. Orcas expanded through cooperation, memory, and culture across surface waters around the globe. Sperm whales claimed the immense darkness beneath, exploiting prey inaccessible to every other giant hunter. Each occupied a different ecological space, because the ancient structure supporting a single overwhelming predator had already dissolved. The modern ocean therefore represents more than the survival of familiar animals. It is the product of absence as much as presence, shaped by opportunities created when one extraordinary hunter disappeared forever. The greatest legacy of Megalodon's extinction was not simply the rise of new apex predators. It was the emergence of an entirely different marine world, one capable of producing forms of life whose astonishing scale and specialized ways of living would once have been far less likely beneath the shadow of the ancient giant. Life sometimes leaves behind its greatest monuments only after an older giant has disappeared. The modern blue whale stands as perhaps the clearest example of that pattern, not because it defeated the ancient predators that came before it, but because it evolved within an ocean whose ecological rules had already been rewritten. Its existence tells a story, measured not in victories, but in opportunities that emerged after profound change. The blue whale, Balænoptera musculus, is the largest animal ever confirmed to have lived on Earth. Adults may reach approximately 30 meters, about 98 feet, in length, while the largest individuals are estimated to approach approximately 33 meters, about 108 feet. Exceptional animals can weigh approximately 180 metric tons, about 198 short tons. No known dinosaur, marine reptile, or prehistoric mammal surpassed this combination of length and mass. Evolution produced many giants before the blue whale, yet none matched its extraordinary scale. Its anatomy reflects this immense size in remarkable ways. The tongue alone may weigh approximately 2,700 kilograms, about 5,950 pounds, comparable to the mass of a large elephant. The heart can exceed approximately 180 kilograms, about 400 pounds, and during prolonged dives, it may slow to approximately 8 beats each minute as oxygen is carefully conserved. Major arteries are astonishingly broad, illustrating the immense circulatory system required to sustain a body unlike any other in natural history. Despite such overwhelming dimensions, the blue whale feeds upon remarkably small prey, vast swarms of krill, each individual measuring only a few centimeters, provide the energy supporting the largest body ever assembled by evolution. During productive feeding seasons, a single whale may consume approximately 3,600 kilograms, about 7,900 pounds, of krill in a single day. This immense transfer of energy demonstrates how abundant marine ecosystems can sustain animals of seemingly impossible proportions. Paleontologists and evolutionary biologists have proposed that the disappearance of very large predatory sharks during the late Pliocene altered the balance of risk facing baleen whales. Earlier whale lineages evolved while sharing coastal and continental shelf habitats with formidable hunters capable of attacking enormous prey. Juveniles, subadults, and even mature individuals likely experienced persistent predation pressure that influenced migration routes, growth patterns, and reproductive strategies across millions of years. When those ancient predators vanished, the selective landscape changed. Increasing body size offered growing protection against the remaining threats without imposing the same level of predation cost. Over geological time, fossil evidence indicates that several baleen whale lineages became substantially larger. Gigantism was not created by a single extinction, yet the removal of a dominant predator appears to have opened ecological possibilities that had previously remained constrained. This perspective does not suggest certainty about an alternate history in which the ancient giant survived unchanged into the present. Evolution rarely follows a single predetermined path. Instead, it highlights how deeply predators influence the future of the species around them. Every extinction removes pressures as well as organisms, allowing surviving lineages to explore possibilities that may once have been inaccessible. The blue whale, therefore, represents more than an extraordinary marine mammal. It embodies an ecosystem transformed across millions of years, where changing climates, shifting food supplies, and the disappearance of once dominant hunters combine to reshape the trajectory of life itself. Standing at the summit of biological size, it serves as a reminder that nature continually rebuilds after even its greatest losses, producing forms that earlier worlds may never have allowed to emerge. Among the countless remains preserved beneath layers of ancient sediment, none tell this story with greater persistence than a single tooth. Bone often disappears long before deep time finishes its work, yet enamel can endure across millions of years. Every shoreline that yields one of these immense triangular fossils offers another small page from a chronicle that stretches across an ocean no living creature has ever witnessed, preserving evidence with remarkable patience long after the animal itself vanished. Unlike mammals, sharks replace their teeth continuously throughout life. New rows develop behind older ones, advancing forward whenever a working tooth is lost. Across decades of growth, an individual may shed many thousands of teeth, each drifting downward through the water column before settling onto the seabed. Most disappear beneath shifting sediment, but a small fraction enter the fossil record, where minerals gradually transform them into durable records of vanished ecosystems. For Megalodon, this endless replacement created an extraordinary archive. Individual teeth reached approximately 18 centimeters, about 7 inches in height, making them among the largest shark teeth ever produced. Fossils have been recovered from coastlines and inland deposits across nearly every continent, including North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, and Oceania. Only Antarctica has yielded no confirmed record. From Maryland to Japan, from Morocco to New Zealand, these discoveries reveal an animal whose range once extended through warm oceans around much of the globe. Each recovered tooth contains more than shape alone. Microscopic traces preserved within the enamel retain chemical signatures that allow researchers to reconstruct aspects of ancient marine life. Ratios of stable isotopes reveal information about water temperatures, feeding habits, and ecological position. Combined with associated fossils from the same deposits, these remains help scientists estimate where Megalodon hunted, which prey supported its immense body, and how marine environments changed during its long history. The same abundance that illuminates its past also answers one of the oldest popular questions surrounding its fate. If a breeding population of Megalodon still occupied modern oceans, those animals would continue shedding teeth exactly as their ancestors had done for millions of years. Fresh, unfossilized specimens would accumulate within young marine sediments, appear in dredging operations, and emerge from recently deposited coastal layers. Such evidence has never been verified despite extensive geological sampling across the world's oceans. Careful examination of the youngest confirmed specimens reinforces the same conclusion. Research evaluating previously disputed records determined that reliably dated Megalodon fossils disappear approximately 3,600,000 years ago. Claims of substantially younger teeth have consistently failed under closer geological analysis, usually because the surrounding sediments were reworked from older deposits rather than representing the age at which the teeth were originally buried. The fossil record ends with remarkable consistency across widely separated regions. Absence alone rarely settles a scientific question, yet this absence carries unusual weight because it appears within one of the richest fossil records known for any extinct marine predator. Millions of years produced an immense collection of teeth, while the recent geological past produces none. Together, those facts create a pattern far stronger than speculation, indicating not a hidden survivor beyond observation, but a lineage whose final chapter has already been written. Even so, the teeth continue their long conversation with the present, Storms uncover them from ancient seabeds, rivers carry them toward modern shores, and patient collectors still discover them resting among ordinary shells and stones. Every specimen preserves another fragment of a predator that ruled for millions of years, leaving behind not living descendants of its own kind, but an enduring archive in enamel, allowing the vanished ocean it once commanded to remain surprisingly close within the hands of those who find it. Long after coastlines shifted and ancient seas settled into their modern forms, one familiar silhouette continued tracing the continental margins with remarkable consistency. While so much of the ocean reorganized following the disappearance of Megalodon, the great white shark endured with an approach that required almost no reinvention. Across approximately 3,600,000 years, it remained an ambush hunter, relying on anatomy refined long before the first human communities appeared beside the sea. Unlike many large predators whose survival depends upon numbers, the great white maintains its influence through presence rather than abundance. Scientists have not determined a reliable global population estimate, yet, throughout temperate coastal waters, the species continues to shape entire ecosystems. Seals, sea lions, dolphins, and countless smaller animals alter where they travel, how long they remain at the surface, and the routes they choose through familiar feeding grounds whenever great whites are known to patrol nearby. Biologists describe this phenomenon as the ecology of fear, a process in which predators transform ecosystems not only through the animals they consume, but also through the decisions they inspire in every potential prey species. This influence extends far beyond the instant of a successful hunt. Colonies adjust resting locations, migration timing shifts, and feeding opportunities change as animals weigh nourishment against risk. In this way, a single mature shark may affect an entire coastal community without making another attack. The surrounding ecosystem responds to possibility as much as certainty, creating patterns that ripple outward through fish populations, marine mammals, and even the distribution of seabirds gathering above productive waters. Modern tracking technology has revealed that these sharks are also travelers across immense distances. Individuals tagged along the California coastline have repeatedly crossed the eastern Pacific toward a remote region, approximately 2,500 kilometers, about 1,553 miles, offshore, nearly halfway between California and the Hawaiian Islands. Researchers named this destination the White Shark Cafe after discovering that many animals returned there with striking regularity. During these journeys, the sharks repeatedly descend beyond 275 meters, about 900 feet, before rising again in rhythmic cycles whose precise purpose remains uncertain. Feeding, courtship, and social encounters have all been proposed, yet the complete explanation continues to elude observation. Longevity adds another dimension to their story. Radiocarbon dating techniques applied to vertebrae suggest that great white sharks may live for at least 70 years, placing them among the longest-lived fishes known. Some individuals swimming today may have entered the ocean before many modern coastal cities assumed their present form. Across those decades, they have encountered changing climates, shifting prey distributions, expanding human activity, and coastlines gradually reshaped by storms and rising seas, while their own hunting strategy remained fundamentally recognizable. The attack itself still reflects the same timeless design. A great white approaches from deeper water, using the contrast between bright surface light and darker depths to conceal its ascent. Powerful muscles drive a sudden burst upward, delivering overwhelming force before prey can react. The initial strike often determines the outcome within moments, preserving energy while minimizing unnecessary risk to the shark itself. Yet, the modern ocean has also revealed the limits of solitary mastery. In regions where orcas appear, even great white sharks have been documented abandoning established feeding grounds, yielding space to coordinated predators whose strength lies not in individual power alone, but in shared experience and learned behavior. The coastal kingdom therefore endures, though no longer without challenge. Across millions of years, the great white has remained astonishingly faithful to the strategy that carried it through the changing ages, holding its realm through patience, precision, and an enduring authority woven into the living fabric of the sea. Far below the familiar rhythms of waves and weather, another realm has continued almost unchanged through millions of years. While coastlines advanced and retreated, and the surface ocean witnessed the rise of new rulers after Megalodon disappeared, the sperm whale remained faithful to a kingdom that still resists human understanding. The abyss did more than provide refuge for this remarkable hunter. It preserved mysteries so profound that even today, the animal stands among the least fully understood of Earth's largest predators. Its voice is one reason. The powerful echolocation clicks used to navigate and hunt represent only part of an astonishing acoustic repertoire. Between hunting dives, sperm whales exchange rhythmic patterns of clicks known as codas. These sequences vary in timing, spacing, and repetition, serving as social signals shared among family members. Decades of research have shown that populations living near the Azores, Dominica, and across the Pacific Ocean possess distinct coda repertoires, each maintained across generations. Much like the learned traditions seen elsewhere in the ocean, these vocal patterns differ from one community to another, suggesting that communication itself has become part of their cultural inheritance. Researchers have begun asking whether these exchanges carry more information than previously imagined. During 2024, the Cetacean Translation Initiative expanded efforts to examine enormous collections of sperm whale recordings using advanced artificial intelligence systems. Rather than searching only for repeated sounds, the project seeks statistical patterns that may reveal consistent meanings associated with particular coda sequences. The work remains in its earliest stages, and no complete translation has emerged. Yet, the possibility that another large mammal possesses communication approaching elements of language has become an active scientific question rather than distant speculation. Their behavior during rest offers another remarkable glimpse into lives spent between immense dives. Instead of floating horizontally, like many marine mammals, groups of sperm whales have been observed suspended almost upright near the surface. Their heads point toward the sky, while their tails extend beneath them, bodies drifting together in coordinated formations. Researchers approaching these gatherings with exceptional care found the animals largely unresponsive for brief periods, indicating genuine sleep. No other known animal consistently adopts such a posture, making these floating columns one of the ocean's most unusual natural spectacles. Within the digestive system of some individuals, another curiosity slowly forms. Sharp squid beaks occasionally resist digestion, encouraging the gradual accumulation of a waxy substance known as ambergris. Over time, this material may be expelled naturally or released after the whale's death, eventually drifting across open water before reaching distant shores. For centuries, its origin remained uncertain despite its extraordinary value in perfumery, where its unique chemical properties allowed fragrances to retain their scent for remarkably long periods. Only during the 20th century did scientists conclusively establish its connection to sperm whale biology, resolving a mystery that had endured through generations of maritime trade. Even with these discoveries, the setting in which sperm whales spend much of their lives remains largely beyond direct observation. Human exploration has mapped only a fraction of the seafloor, with well under 1/4 surveyed in high detail. Vast expanses beneath approximately 1,000 meters, about 3,281 feet, continue to receive only occasional visits from research vehicles. The hunting grounds these whales navigate daily remain, in many regions, more thoroughly known to them than to the species attempting to study them. That enduring imbalance offers a fitting perspective on the modern ocean. Great white sharks continue to patrol coastal waters, orcas preserve traditions passed through generations, and sperm whales descend into immense darkness, carrying knowledge shaped by environments still hidden from human eyes. Together, they inherited a world transformed after Megalodon's disappearance, yet each continues ruling a different kingdom within an ocean that remains older, deeper, and far less completely understood than the maps hanging above its surface. Across the modern ocean, no other large predator demonstrates such remarkable diversity while remaining a single species. The orca that glides through Arctic waters is genetically close to the one patrolling subtropical seas, yet generations of learned behavior have carried different populations along strikingly different paths. Evolution has continued through changes in genes, but also through traditions, teaching, and accumulated experience, producing societies whose identities are shaped as much by inheritance of knowledge as inheritance of biology. Nowhere is this more evident than in the North Pacific. Resident orca populations feed almost entirely upon fish, especially Chinook salmon, refining hunting techniques suited to rivers, seasonal migrations, and schooling prey. Transient populations occupying many of the same coastal waters follow an entirely different way of life. They specialize in hunting seals, sea lions, porpoises, dolphins, and other marine mammals while almost never consuming fish. These neighboring communities hear one another's calls, occasionally cross the same stretches of ocean, and nevertheless maintain separate social identities. They rarely interbreed, not because mountains or continents divide them, but because generations of cultural tradition have preserved fundamentally different lifestyles. The distinction reaches beyond diet. Residents travel in large, stable family groups whose conversations fill the water with familiar vocal exchanges, while transient pods often move with far greater acoustic restraint when pursuing mammals whose hearing could reveal an approaching hunter. Each strategy reflects countless lessons accumulated across generations, refined not through instinct alone but through observation, repetition, and shared experience. Young calves spend years beside older relatives before mastering the skills that define the community into which they were born. Along the shores of Patagonia, another extraordinary tradition unfolds where land and sea briefly meet. Certain orcas intentionally propel themselves onto sloping beaches to seize young sea lions gathered near the surf. The maneuver demands exceptional timing and precise judgment. Too little momentum leaves the whale stranded beyond the returning waves, while too much force carries it farther ashore than safety allows. Mothers introduce juveniles to this dangerous technique gradually, demonstrating each movement repeatedly until experience replaces uncertainty. Despite decades of observation, this remarkable hunting behavior remains confined to a single population, emphasizing once again that culture, rather than instinct alone, determines how different orcas survive. During recent years, another learned behavior emerged along the Iberian Peninsula. Beginning in 2020, several orcas repeatedly approached sailing vessels, directing particular attention toward their rudders. Some boats experienced damaged steering systems after prolonged interactions. Researchers continue debating the original cause, proposing explanations ranging from play to responses following earlier encounters with vessels. Whatever initiated the behavior, one conclusion has become increasingly clear. The pattern spread through social learning as additional pods adopted similar interactions, illustrating that new traditions can still arise and circulate within living orca societies. This capacity for continual innovation rests upon a lineage extending approximately 10 million to 11 million years into the past. Through shifting climates, changing coastlines, the disappearance of Megalodon, and every major reorganization that followed, orcas endured not by remaining unchanged, but by allowing each generation to inherit knowledge accumulated by the last. Every successful hunt, every migration route, every distinctive dialect, and every specialized technique became another thread woven into a family history that stretches far beyond the lifespan of any individual animal. Today, the descendants of those ancient hunters still traverse every ocean, carrying traditions impossible to preserve in stone, yet no less enduring than fossils buried beneath the seabed. Great white sharks continue refining an ancient strategy of solitary precision. Sperm whales command the hidden depths through extraordinary adaptation, and orcas expand their inheritance through learning itself. Together they reveal that the greatest legacy left by Megalodon's disappearance was not merely empty territory awaiting new rulers. It was an ocean where survival increasingly favored flexibility, cooperation, and the ability to pass wisdom forward. A lesson that life has written again and again across more than 540 million years of evolution. No creature announced its supremacy over the ancient ocean with greater authority than Megalodon. It possessed the most powerful bite ever estimated for a predatory fish, a body refined through roughly 20 million years of successful evolution, and a position near the summit of marine life without any known natural predator. For an immense span of geological time, that combination appeared almost permanent. Yet permanence is rarely the promise offered by evolution. It is only the appearance granted to those whose world continues to reward the same design. The ocean that followed told a different story. Megalodon vanished, and no single successor inherited everything it left behind. Instead, its immense ecological influence separated into distinct realms occupied by three very different animals. None equaled its individual size or overwhelming physical force. None recreated its exact way of life. Collectively, however, they accomplished what one giant hunter no longer could, each succeeding through qualities that reflected a changing planet rather than an unchanged past. This pattern extends far beyond one species. Again and again, throughout the fossil record, changing climates, shifting coastlines, altered currents, and evolving food webs have favored flexibility over absolute specialization. Organisms exquisitely adapted to one stable environment often flourish for millions of years, only to encounter conditions that reward different strengths. Evolution offers no lasting title of champion. It continually measures organisms against the world as it exists now, not the world that existed before. The great white shark illustrates one answer to that challenge. Although formidable in its own right, it did not prevail by exceeding Megalodon in raw force. Its success rests upon economy. A smaller body requires less energy to sustain. Hunting opportunities that would scarcely satisfy a giant predator become entirely worthwhile for a more moderate one. Serrated teeth efficiently process prey while reducing the effort needed during feeding, and physiological adaptations allow occupation of waters spanning a broad range of temperatures. These advantages transformed efficiency into resilience, permitting survival where extravagant energy demands became increasingly difficult to satisfy. Another solution emerged among the orcas. Their greatest advantage was neither size nor weaponry alone, but the ability to learn collectively. Hunting strategies could be refined through experience, demonstrated to younger generations, and preserved within families without waiting for slow genetic change. Every successful technique became shared knowledge. Every new environmental challenge offered another opportunity for innovation. Culture itself became an evolutionary force, allowing adaptation to proceed across years instead of countless generations. Far beneath the reach of sunlight, the sperm whale followed an entirely different path. Rather than competing directly within crowded coastal ecosystems, it entered a realm few other large predators could exploit effectively. Extraordinary diving physiology, unmatched echolocation, and remarkable tolerance for crushing pressure opened access to prey hidden in immense darkness. Competition diminished because almost no rival possessed the biological equipment necessary to operate there. Victory arrived not through conquest alone, but through occupying a place that others could scarcely enter. Each of these animals reveals a separate expression of evolutionary success. The great white demonstrates efficiency. The orca embodies shared knowledge. The sperm whale represents profound specialization within an otherwise inaccessible world. Their stories unfolded independently, yet together they reveal that survival may be achieved through remarkably different paths. None required becoming the largest animal in the sea. Megalodon possessed extraordinary physical power, yet its defining strengths remained closely tied to an ocean that no longer existed. As climates cooled, prey communities shifted, and coastlines transformed, the qualities that had sustained its dominance offered diminishing advantage. There was no cultural tradition to reshape hunting behavior, no smaller energetic budget to soften ecological hardship, and no alternate kingdom prepared beyond the changing seas it already ruled. Its magnificent design reflected one chapter of Earth's history with astonishing precision, but evolution ultimately rewarded those capable of meeting the next chapter on different terms. From that ancient transition emerges a lesson extending well beyond a single extinction. Endurance belongs not to the mightiest form alone, but to life that continues finding new ways to match an ever-changing world. The ocean still carries that lesson today, written through 3 surviving rulers whose kingdoms endure because each discovered a different answer to the same enduring challenge of survival. Long before forests spread across continents or the first footsteps marked dry land, the sea had already become a vast laboratory of power. For approximately 540 million years, life has experimented with countless forms of hunters, each shaped by the conditions of its own age. Some carried armor thicker than stone, others wielded crushing jaws or astonishing speed. Every era produced a predator that appeared perfectly suited to its world. Every era also came to an end, leaving even its greatest ruler preserved only in layers of ancient rock. Among the earliest giants stood Anomalocaris, drifting through Cambrian waters with grasping appendages and keen compound eyes, unlike anything before it. For a time, it occupied a place near the summit of marine life, hunting within ecosystems, still discovering the possibilities of complex animals. Geological change and evolutionary competition gradually transformed those seas, and the creature that once represented unmatched success disappeared before the Ordovician had fully unfolded. Its reign survives only through fossils that reveal both extraordinary adaptation and inevitable replacement. Millions of years later, The Devonian oceans belonged to Dunkleosteus. Massive bony plates formed jaws capable of tremendous force, allowing this armored predator to dominate ancient marine environments. Yet the end Devonian extinction altered global ecosystems on a scale no individual species could resist. The oceans changed, food webs reorganized, and the animal that had seemed invincible vanished alongside countless other inhabitants. Its formidable anatomy could not preserve it from a planet entering a different chapter. The Mesozoic era introduced another succession of rulers. Mosasaurs transformed from land-dwelling ancestors into sleek marine hunters, while plesiosaurs perfected different strategies across the same immense waters. Together, they flourished for millions of years until the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction reshaped Earth once more. The asteroid impact, followed by cascading environmental disruption, erased entire branches of life. Dominance that had endured across ages disappeared within a comparatively brief geological interval, making room for oceans that would never again resemble those ancient seas. Much later, Megalodon inherited its own extraordinary age of abundance. For approximately 20 million years, it occupied an ecological position unmatched by any predatory fish before or since. Then climatic cooling, shifting coastlines, changing prey communities, and altered circulation patterns combined into pressures beyond even its remarkable specialization. By approximately 3,600,000 years ago, its lineage had vanished, leaving behind an immense fossil archive and an ocean prepared for different rulers. The great white shark, the orca, and the sperm whale have now occupied their respective kingdoms for roughly 3,600,000 years. By human standards, that span is almost beyond imagination. Against the broader history of marine life, however, it remains only one passage within a far longer story. Their continued success depends not upon ancient victories, but upon how effectively they respond to environments that continue evolving around them. Those environments are changing once again. Ocean temperatures continue to rise across many regions. Feeding grounds shift as currents and climate influence the distribution of prey. Certain orca populations that depend upon sea ice encounter habitats that grow less stable from year to year. In deeper waters, changing oxygen availability may gradually influence communities that have remained comparatively constant for immense stretches of time. These pressures differ from those that shaped the late Pliocene, yet they arise from the same enduring principle. Life must continually adapt to conditions that refuse to remain fixed. Seen across hundreds of millions of years, the fossil record becomes more than a catalog of vanished giants. It resembles a conversation between Earth and the organisms living upon it, one carried through extinction, renewal, and continual transformation. Every apex predator eventually becomes evidence rather than presence. Every enduring success remains temporary when measured against geological time. The ocean preserves that lesson with remarkable consistency, reminding us that what flourishes today emerged from earlier endings, and that somewhere within living ecosystems, the foundations of future rulers are already beginning to take shape. Stand beside any modern shoreline, watch waves travel toward the land, and it is easy to imagine that the ocean before us has always been arranged this way. Yet every current, migration, and encounter among its largest inhabitants unfolds within a world shaped by an absence millions of years old. The structure of today's seas still carries the imprint left when Megalodon disappeared. Its extinction did not simply remove one extraordinary predator. It changed the possibilities available to everything that followed. The blue whale offers perhaps the clearest expression of that transformation. Reaching approximately 30 meters, about 98 feet, in length and weighing nearly 180 metric tons, about 397,000 pounds, at the greatest documented sizes. It occupies waters once shared with a predator capable of hunting enormous baleen whales. The evolutionary path toward becoming the largest animal known in Earth's history unfolded only after that immense pressure disappeared. The giant drifting through modern oceans reflects not only what evolution created, but also what extinction permitted. Along productive coastlines, the great white shark continues a different legacy. Adults reaching approximately 6.5 meters, about 21 feet, in length patrol environments, once frequented by a hunter more than twice as large. Rather than inheriting overwhelming size, the great white inherited opportunity. It became ideally suited to ecosystems where efficiency, adaptability, and moderate energetic demands proved more sustainable than the immense requirements carried by its predecessor. The coastal kingdom it governs exists because another ruler no longer occupies the same waters. Far from shore, the orca demonstrates how intelligence gained increasing ecological value as marine communities reorganized. Cooperative hunting, cultural inheritance, and social learning allowed populations to exploit prey unavailable through instinct alone. Their success reflects an ocean in which flexible behavior increasingly outweighed sheer physical scale. Across generations, knowledge accumulated alongside genetics, creating predators whose greatest advantage could be shared rather than inherited exclusively through biological change. Deep beneath those surface worlds, the sperm whale occupies an entirely separate domain. Descending to approximately 2,000 meters, about 6,562 feet, in search of squid, it harvests resources that remained largely beyond Megalodon's ecological reach. The abyss became its kingdom through remarkable physiological specialization, extending the division of the modern ocean into distinct realms shaped by different solutions to survival rather than competition for a single throne. Taken together, these animals reveal that every major marine predator living today emerged within ecological circumstances created after the late Pliocene transformation. None evolved for the world Megalodon inhabited. Each instead became increasingly successful within environments reorganized by its disappearance. Evolution responded not by recreating what had been lost, but by exploring new combinations of anatomy, behavior, metabolism, and habitat. The consequences of that ancient extinction remain measurable beyond individual species. Research published in Nature, Ecology, and Evolution concluded that many functional ecological roles eliminated during the Pliocene extinction were never restored during the Pleistocene. Distinct combinations of body size, feeding strategy, habitat use, and ecological interaction vanished permanently. New species evolved, yet they did not fully reconstruct the intricate network that had existed before. The living ocean inherited a framework already simplified by events long preceding human history. That perspective transforms the present into part of a much older narrative. Modern marine ecosystems are not pristine continuations of an uninterrupted past. They are descendants of a profound biological reorganization that removed countless lineages while opening opportunities for others. Every encounter among blue whales, great white sharks, orcas, and sperm whales unfolds within ecological boundaries established millions of years ago. Seen through the lens of deep time, the ocean remains governed by Megalodon's absence as much as by the presence of its successors. The great predators still ruling their respective kingdoms embody remarkable evolutionary success, yet they also inhabit a sea carrying memories of vanished complexity. What survives today is magnificent in its own right, while also serving as enduring evidence that every living ecosystem is shaped as deeply by what disappeared as by what remains. Beyond the reach of sunlight, beyond the migrations of most familiar marine life, the ocean expands into a realm that remains only partly understood. The great divisions shaped after Megalodon's disappearance are real, yet they do not encompass every corner of the sea. Even the most accomplished predators occupy only portions of an environment so immense that vast regions continue to resist careful examination. The modern ocean is therefore not only a place of established kingdoms, but also one of enduring discovery. Despite centuries of exploration, human knowledge reaches only a fraction of the seabed. Less than 1/5 of the ocean floor has been directly observed and mapped in meaningful detail. The remaining expanse, more than 4/5 of the seabed, stretches across an area larger than the combined land surface of every continent. Much of this territory lies beneath crushing pressure and complete darkness, where research vessels, remotely operated vehicles, and autonomous instruments can investigate only small windows at a time before moving onward. Among the few large mammals that regularly enter this hidden world is the sperm whale, descending to approximately 2,000 meters, about 6,562 feet, beneath the surface during many hunting dives. It travels through layers inhabited by creatures that remain poorly documented. Scientists can record dive profiles, track movement, and recover acoustic information. Yet the precise encounters unfolding during those long descents often remain beyond direct observation. Every successful hunt hints at intricate food webs extending through water columns that people have scarcely witnessed. One of the clearest reminders of this limited understanding emerged remarkably recently. The giant squid, long surrounded by sailors' accounts and scattered physical remains, was not photographed alive within its natural habitat until 2004. A Japanese research expedition captured images at approximately 900 meters, roughly 3,000 feet below the surface, revealing an animal that had remained largely unseen despite centuries of fascination. Before that achievement, the principal prey of the sperm whale had existed in scientific knowledge more through fragments than observation. Even more elusive is the colossal squid, scientifically known as Mesinicoteuthis hamiltoni. Confirmed during the early 20th century, it possesses swiveling hooks upon its tentacles instead of relying entirely on suction cups, and its eyes may reach approximately 40 centimeters, about 16 inches, across, among the largest known in the animal kingdom. Yet no researcher has documented this immense cephalopod alive within its natural environment. Knowledge comes primarily from specimens recovered by fishing operations, occasional strandings, and remains discovered inside the stomachs of sperm whales, leaving much of its natural behavior unresolved. These examples illustrate a broader scientific reality. Unknown does not imply mythical or supernatural. Instead, it reflects the practical challenge of studying an environment where pressure, distance, darkness, and scale combine to slow every investigation. Countless species have been described only within recent decades, while others are recognized from isolated encounters separated by many years. Ecological relationships continue to emerge as new expeditions gather observations from habitats previously beyond technological reach. Within those depths, predator and prey continue ancient interactions, regardless of whether human observers witness them. Chemical cycles, migrations, reproductive strategies, and feeding behaviors shape ecosystems, operating according to principles refined across millions of years. Each expedition contributes another piece to an immense biological mosaic without suggesting that the picture is complete. The abyss remains an active frontier because evidence continues to accumulate, rather than because imagination replaces science. The three great successors to Megalodon inherited distinct realms, yet the deepest of those realms still guards many of its ordinary realities from direct observation. The sperm whale passes through that concealed kingdom every day, navigating landscapes that scientific instruments are only beginning to reveal. The fossil record reminds us that the ocean has never ceased creating new forms of life, adapting old ones, and reshaping ecological relationships. Beneath the deepest waters, that long story continues, unfolding beyond the edges of the maps we have drawn so far. There comes a point in every long journey through natural history when the facts begin to settle into something larger than themselves. Bones, teeth, oceans, and extinction cease to be isolated discoveries and instead become parts of a pattern stretching across spans of time that resist ordinary imagination. Looking backward from the present, Megalodon no longer appears simply as the greatest predatory fish that ever lived. It becomes one chapter within a story that has never stopped rewriting itself. Megalodon ruled the oceans for approximately 20 million years. During that immense interval, continents continued drifting, climates shifted gradually, and countless generations of marine life appeared and disappeared beneath its patrol. By comparison, the entirety of recorded human civilization reaches back only about 5,000 years. That history, from the earliest cities to the present day, occupies scarcely 1/4000th of Megalodon's reign. Events that seem immeasurably ancient within human memory become astonishingly brief when measured against the chronology preserved within marine sediments. The same perspective reshapes the lives of its successors. The great white shark has occupied its coastal role for approximately 3.6 million years without fundamentally changing its successful strategy. Anatomically modern humans have existed for approximately 300,000 years, barely 1/10 of the duration that the great white has already maintained its ecological position. Entire civilizations have risen, expanded, transformed, and vanished, while great white sharks continued following familiar migration routes along evolving coastlines. The lineage leading to modern orcas extends through approximately 10 million to 11 million years in various ancestral forms. Across those millions of years, inherited behavior gradually accumulated alongside inherited biology, producing societies capable of transmitting knowledge across generations. The sperm whale reaches even farther into the past, with ancestors extending at least 24 million years into the Oligocene. Long before humanity shaped its earliest tools, these lineages were already navigating oceans that looked profoundly different from those surrounding us today. Seen together, every predator and every prey within this story belonged to a temporal scale that greatly exceeds the one through which people ordinarily understand history. The Miocene unfolded, yielded to the Pliocene, and eventually gave way to the Pleistocene through processes unfolding across intervals so prolonged that even the lifespan of an entire species could become only a passing phase. Human history, remarkable within its own frame of reference, resembles a brief interruption rather than the central narrative when placed against this deeper chronology. That perspective changes the meaning of dominance itself. Megalodon remained the foremost predatory fish for a period exceeding the entire interval, separating the first dinosaurs from the asteroid impact that ended their age. Few biological achievements appear more complete than such enduring success. Yet no duration, however immense, exempted it from the changing conditions that ultimately reshaped the ocean around it. Its extraordinary reign concluded not because its power suddenly diminished, but because the world supporting that power became something different. The ocean measures success according to conditions rather than permanence. A dominant species prospers because its abilities align with the circumstances surrounding it at a particular moment in geological time. As climates shift, currents reorganize, prey populations change, and ecosystems reorganize, the definition of success changes with them. Evolution responds not with loyalty to former rulers, but with continual adjustment to present realities, rewarding whatever traits best match the world that now exists. The great white, the orca, and the sperm whale therefore stand not as permanent sovereigns, but as living expressions of today's ocean. Across approximately 540 million years since the Cambrian explosion, every apparent empire has eventually yielded to another. These remarkable animals are not exceptions to that enduring pattern. They are simply the present answer to conditions that continue evolving, an answer written in living flesh today, just as earlier answers remain written in stone beneath the sea. A single fossil tooth can rest unnoticed within a shoreline for millions of years before a passing wave uncovers it. Lifted into daylight after such an immense span, it becomes more than a remnant of an extinct animal. It becomes evidence that an entire world once existed beneath the same horizon, governed by rules profoundly different from those shaping the sea today. That realization carries a weight distinct from sorrow. It is the recognition that even the greatest realities can eventually become traces preserved in stone. For approximately 20 million years, Megalodon occupied an ecological role unlike anything known in the modern ocean. Across tropical and subtropical seas, the movements of large whales, the distribution of prey, and the balance among marine predators unfolded beneath an evolutionary pressure imposed by its presence. Generation after generation, inherited instincts, refined within a world where encountering such a hunter remained an ordinary possibility. The structure of entire ecosystems reflected that enduring relationship, repeated across intervals of time almost beyond comprehension. Then that condition ended. The transition unfolded over geological time, yet the fossil record preserves a remarkably clear boundary. Reliably dated megalodon teeth extend to approximately 3.6 million years ago, after which they disappear from the verified record. Younger sediments continue preserving the remains of countless other marine organisms, yet no confirmed evidence places Megalodon beyond that point. A lineage that had persisted through millions upon millions of years ceased to contribute new chapters to Earth's biological history. The ocean did not remain suspended in that absence. Ecological spaces gradually reorganized as surviving species adapted to changing conditions. Baleen whales expanded into larger forms. Great white sharks continued refining an efficient strategy along productive coastlines. Orcas accumulated generations of learned behavior that shaped increasingly complex societies. Sperm whales continued descending toward deep hunting grounds beyond the reach of sunlight. None of these developments represented deliberate replacements. They emerged because evolution continually reshapes living systems whenever opportunity, competition, and environmental change intersect. Life does not preserve previous arrangements simply because they endured for extraordinary lengths of time. Instead, every ecosystem remains in motion, responding to climate, geography, food availability, and countless interactions unfolding across generations. Extinction removes possibilities, yet evolution explores those that remain. New relationships appear without memory of the ones preceding them. The sea carries no preference for former rulers only the continual expression of organisms best suited to prevailing conditions. Perhaps the most difficult idea is not that Megalodon disappeared, but that an ecological order lasting approximately 20 million years could conclude and eventually become unfamiliar even to the world that inherited it. Every migration, once influenced by its presence, gradually unfolded without it. Every coastline, formerly crossed beneath its shadow, became home to different predators. The immense history surrounding that animal dissolved into geological evidence while the living ocean continued reorganizing itself, generation after generation, until its former condition became almost unimaginable. The same principle extends beyond any single species. Every modern ruler of the sea exists within circumstances that will not remain unchanged forever. Ocean currents continue shifting, climates continue changing, coastlines continue evolving. Future ecosystems will inherit conditions unlike those surrounding today's predators, just as today's ocean differs profoundly from the one Megalodon knew. The history preserved in marine rocks suggests no permanent conclusion, only successive chapters linked by adaptation and change. Even so, fragments of that vanished world still reach human hands. Megalodon teeth continue emerging from ancient sediments, washing onto beaches after approximately 3.6 million years beneath layers of sand and seabed. Their enamel remains remarkably intact, preserving chemical clues about ancient diets and vanished oceans. They are discovered along coastlines now patrolled by great white sharks, beside waters crossed by hunting orcas, and above depths where sperm whales still descend. Within those enduring fossils rests a reminder that the greatest legacy of Megalodon is not its size, but the extraordinary span of time through which its presence shaped an ocean that no longer exists. The journey began with a question that appeared almost effortless in its simplicity. What replaced Megalodon after it vanished from the oceans of Earth? The fossil record, living species, and the immense passage of geological time revealed that no single creature inherited its throne. Instead, the disappearance of one extraordinary predator reshaped the possibilities available to everything that followed, allowing the ocean to discover more than one path toward dominance. One answer emerged along the coastlines, where changing climates favored endurance over overwhelming size. The great white shark became an expression of efficiency, carrying a body built for lower energy demands, broad environmental tolerance, and remarkable hunting economy. It did not equal Megalodon in mass or bite force, nor did it need to. In a world transformed by cooler waters and altered prey distributions, success belonged to an animal capable of thriving within new ecological mathematics rather than preserving the old ones. A different answer appeared within closely bonded families traveling across vast distances together. Orcas demonstrated that intelligence alone was only part of their advantage. Their greatest strength lay in the ability to preserve experience beyond the lifetime of a single individual. Hunting methods, migration routes, dietary traditions, and social behaviors accumulated across generations, creating cultures that continued adapting without waiting for genetic change alone. In that remarkable inheritance, the ocean revealed a strategy unlike any employed by the giant predators of earlier ages. Far beneath those familiar waters, another solution unfolded beyond ordinary sight. The sperm whale did not compete for dominance across productive coastlines or surface feeding grounds. Instead, it entered a vertical world extending approximately 2,000 meters, about 6,562 feet beneath the waves, where immense pressure and complete darkness limited competition from other giant hunters. Extraordinary physiology, powerful echolocation, and unmatched diving endurance transformed an inaccessible environment into a thriving kingdom. Rather than conquering every region of the sea, it mastered one that few rivals could successfully enter. Each of these lineages answered the same challenge differently. One relied upon efficiency, one expanded the power of learning, one embraced a habitat beyond the reach of nearly every competitor. None repeated the strategy that had defined Megalodon. Simply becoming larger than every neighboring predator had once proved astonishingly successful, sustaining approximately 20 million years of evolutionary prosperity. Yet changing conditions gradually favored different combinations of traits, demonstrating that biological success always depends upon the world in which it unfolds, rather than upon absolute power alone. That realization reaches beyond the history of any individual species. Dominance within nature is never a permanent title bestowed upon a single lineage. It is a relationship between organism and environment, renewed continuously as climates shift, prey populations fluctuate, and ecosystems reorganize themselves. The ocean has expressed that principle repeatedly across approximately 540 million years since the Cambrian explosion, replacing one apparently unshakable ruler after another without hesitation or preference. Even now, those living successors continue their ancient work. Great white sharks patrol productive coastlines, separated by entire oceans. Orca families pass hunting traditions from experienced adults to attentive calves, preserving knowledge that may endure for generations, yet unborn. Sperm whales descend once more into immense darkness, where their powerful acoustic pulses illuminate waters hidden from human vision. Each represents a living response to an extinction that transformed marine life long before humanity existed to witness it. They are not echoes of Megalodon, nor imperfect substitutes for what disappeared. They are expressions of an ocean that adapted, reorganized, and discovered new possibilities after an ancient chapter reached its conclusion. In that continuing transformation lies perhaps the deepest lesson of all. The greatest story preserved within the sea is not the rise or fall of any single predator, but the extraordinary capacity of life itself to reshape the meaning of survival whenever the world becomes something new. Across the shores of the modern world, the ocean continues a habit so ancient that it almost escapes notice. After strong tides, shifting currents, and patient erosion uncover another fragment of deep time, someone bends toward the sand and lifts a broad triangular tooth into daylight. It may happen along the beaches of Maryland, the coasts of South Carolina, the islands of the Philippines, or the Atlantic margin of Morocco. The places differ, yet the discovery belongs to the same immense story, carried across continents by water that has never truly stopped moving. Each fossil tooth marks the life of a single megalodon. Long before it settled into sediment, it formed within the jaw of a living predator, grew layer by layer through ordinary biological processes, then loosened during feeding and drifted into an ocean that no longer exists. Fine particles slowly covered it. Minerals replaced delicate structures while preserving its shape. Above it, currents shifted, coastlines wandered, and entire marine communities appeared and disappeared. What rested beneath the seabed for millions of years eventually returned through erosion, storms, or the patient work of a careful collector. Holding such a tooth brings together moments separated by distances that ordinary experience rarely joins. The enamel once belonged to an animal swimming through warm coastal seas during the Miocene and early Pliocene, long before modern coastlines settled into their familiar outlines. At that time, the ancestors of present-day orcas remained comparatively modest dolphins. Great white sharks were still establishing their future place among coastal predators. and sperm whales continued refining the extraordinary adaptations that would eventually carry them into profound depths beyond the reach of almost every other hunter. Nothing within the life of that individual predator contained any awareness of what would follow. Evolution does not anticipate. It responds only to conditions unfolding in the present. The animal that shed the tooth could not foresee that changing climates, declining prey, and shifting ecosystems would eventually end its lineage. It could not foresee blue whales expanding toward lengths of roughly 30 meters, about 98 feet, made possible within an ocean no longer constrained by its immense presence. It could not foresee great white sharks mastering productive continental shelves, or orcas transforming inherited experience into traditions shared across generations, or sperm whales extending their dominion through immense vertical journeys reaching nearly 2,000 meters, approximately 6,560 feet beneath the surface. The fossil, therefore, represents far more than the remains of one remarkable fish. It preserves a single point within an unbroken chain of ecological change. Every recovered tooth confirms that the oceans have never remained fixed, even when they appear timeless from the shore. Predators rise, environments reorganize, prey adapt, and entire food webs reshape themselves through pressures unfolding across spans that exceed ordinary imagination. The rock does not exaggerate these transitions, nor does it diminish them. It simply records them with remarkable patience. There is another quality that emerges when such a specimen rests in a human hand. The tooth feels heavier than appearance alone would suggest, not because of its physical mass, but because it carries the accumulated passage of roughly 20 million years of evolutionary success within a form that survived while the living animal vanished. Beside that duration, even the longest human civilization occupies only a brief interval, scarcely visible against the broader rhythm written into marine history. What the fossil record of Megalodon actually represents is not merely evidence that an extraordinary predator once lived. It is the preserved memory of an ocean that has already completed one vast transformation and continued onward without hesitation. The seas that created those teeth have disappeared, yet the ocean that followed still moves beneath the same laws of physics, the same chemistry, and the same enduring pressures of hunger, adaptation, survival, and change. Long before forests spread across continents or the first animals stepped onto land, the ocean had already begun writing its immense history. Around 3.5 billion years ago, life emerged within its waters, first in forms too small for the eye to perceive, then in creatures of growing complexity, until entire marine worlds became filled with hunters, grazers, scavengers, and giants. Across approximately 540 million years since the Cambrian explosion, the sea has repeatedly assembled magnificent ecosystems only to reshape them again through the patient forces of evolution, climate, and time. The story of Megalodon belongs within that far greater rhythm. Before its reign, another master occupied the seas. Dunkleosteus dominated the Devonian oceans with armor and crushing jaws before disappearing during the end Devonian extinction. Later came the immense marine reptiles of the Triassic, followed by the mosasaurs and plesiosaurs that flourished through the Mesozoic before vanishing at the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction. None of those rulers expected successors. None remained forever. Their disappearance was not an interruption of the ocean's history, but part of the process through which entirely different forms of life inherited familiar waters under unfamiliar conditions. That same process unfolded again when Megalodon vanished roughly 3.6 million years ago. The absence of the largest predatory fish ever known did not leave an enduring emptiness. Instead, the living ocean reorganized itself with remarkable patience. New ecological balances emerged. Existing lineages expanded into opportunities that had not previously existed. Evolution did not search for another megalodon. It produced different solutions for a different world. The great white shark became one answer, thriving through efficiency rather than overwhelming size. The orca became another, building success through cooperation, memory, and traditions passed from one generation to the next. The sperm whale answered in an entirely different direction, descending nearly 2,000 meters, about 6,560 feet, beneath the surface, to exploit hunting grounds that remained inaccessible to almost every other large predator. Each lineage demonstrates that survival depends upon matching changing environments rather than preserving ancient forms. None of these remarkable animals should be regarded as the final expression of oceanic evolution. They represent only the present arrangement of an ancient system that has never ceased adapting. Environmental conditions continue to shift. Ocean temperatures change. Currents alter their paths. Food webs expand and contract. Species appear, diversify, decline, and disappear. Throughout every chapter, the ocean continues responding with extraordinary creativity, reshaping life through pressures operating across spans far beyond ordinary human experience. No scientist can confidently describe the predators that may eventually inherit these waters. The fossil record offers no detailed blueprint for the future. It provides something more valuable. It demonstrates that every period of apparent permanence has eventually yielded to transformation. Whenever conditions changed sufficiently, life responded with innovations impossible to predict beforehand. Something always followed. Something always occupied the spaces left behind. Meanwhile, the living descendants of that long reorganization continue their daily journeys. Roughly 3 6/10 million years after the final megalodon tooth settled onto the seabed, great white sharks still patrol productive coastlines. Orca families still preserve knowledge through generations. Sperm whales still descend toward profound depths, approaching 2,000 meters, approximately 6,560 feet, where darkness has endured since long before humanity existed, and where their astonishing clicks remain the most powerful biological sounds ever measured. Ancient teeth still emerge from coastal sediments after storms, linking modern hands with vanished seas. Above those same waters, the descendants of an older transformation continue their lives, each carrying part of a story that began millions of years before our own species appeared. The ocean does not stop. It never has. It remains Earth's oldest continuous narrative, forever revising itself through time, preserving nothing unchanged except the enduring certainty that another chapter is always beginning.